Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending where you are in the world. Thank you for looking to this video. The team asked me to speak about a man that I met in Milan, coming from Belgium. We work in Milan, in Florence, and in Paris together. He's a very smart, sensitive, always in research, very human and respectful with the team he's working with, very, very involved, absolutely ready to share with other creative mind, RAF Simons. I received a call. The story will begin like that, like once upon a time, but it's often this case. I received a call from a man who will become a friend, Austrian master in the University of Vienna for fashion, and where RAF were giving lesson to Mr. Andreas Bergbauer, who had became at that moment the head of communication marketing of Jill Sander, to come in Milan and meet RAF. So arrive in this white office and super wide and Greek proportion offices via the Castello, Piazza del Castello in Milan, just in front of the castle. It was the office of Madame Jill Sander, where RAF were working now. And we had this meeting where he explained what he was looking for, and the purity he was looking for, the research he was always in, and that he always loved the work we were doing. Like, I was definitely in full admiration for his strength to fight and to bring another proportion on menswear. And he asked me this question, strange, it's about my research. And during the discussion, I told him that I couldn't have worked with him because I thought I was working with people which I was also kind of research, and it's very complicated sometimes to stay faithful when there is some designers who are not really in a good relationship together. So, and also he told me I didn't call you because before I didn't want, it was maybe too expensive. And, well, this question of price and fees was interesting because more you're working, more people think you're going to be expensive. And my answer was, with all the team, we have a certain low-key politic to adapt our work to a budget which is given to us, and that there is no, it's definitely easier to work with a big budget, but it happens with a couple of brands with whom we had the global budget to tell them that we don't have to spend everything because it doesn't need. And it happened also that we say, well, for that project we'd love to do, we need to have a little bit more. But it was not a question of money. So we began to work together. At Jill Sander, it was like 2005. And after 3 or 4 years, he asked me to work with him in Paris. And that is very interesting to analyze of the brain process of the person. He really need to see and test, experience, not only the work, but also the relationship. Basically, the first show was done in a space in industrial part of Milan, who became now very trendy, but at that time it was, I would consider, like a suburb. And Andreas explained to me that RAF was looking for something like a sunrise. And so I began to work on a box with a frame, and inside it was a very, very strong rust, burn, amber color, who was very stable. But due to your eyes looking to saturate colors, you have the feeling of flickering, which was not, as when you look to a sun. And looking to the other side of the room, I was annoyed that people can see technique. So I begin to work on hiding my lamps, hiding my lights, which was, we have the wall with all the lamps, we focus the lamps, and then they build in front of it another wall. And then I switch on the lamp, so we have a mark of the light on the different, on the wall, on the different part of the wall. And so we cut the wall with the shape of the focusing. And the focusing brings that, because each lamp is not going exactly to the same direction and is not open wider at the same way, when you look at the front, you had a kind of a cut, which was totally random, a bit like very organic, a bit like the windows in Le Corbusier church. So that's to show a research on which RAF gave the freedom to suggest and propose, and when it's accurate to his own research, it was superbly very nice. But I'm gonna speak later in another one, another film about light and about light for fashion shows. Speaking with him often was about the purity of the light for Jules Sander. The purity, what, like, in a way you cannot see where the light come from. And that was very interesting, a kind of research. It was a bit like when I was working with Helmut Lang, the kind of thing, there is nothing. We mustn't see, we have the feeling that everything is absolutely natural. When we begin in Paris, it was also a vocabulary of a fashion show. Vocabulary of a fashion show with often the wish of RAF to have artists who could interfere and conflict and speak and create a dialogue with his own creation. So we made the show with this artist with this moving piece in wood with lights. It was a very nice movement, because the movement was ordered by the artist on live, and it gives a different rhythm with the models turning and the object turning. There was, and definitely later on, we have been able to work with Sterling Ruby, but it was like 10 years after. So at the beginning, on the research of the first show, we arrived the morning to try to make the show in the evening. So production-wise, it was very, very tight. And in this room that he chose, there was a very big window at the end. And this big window was going to a garden with some trees. So during the day, I asked to have some lamps outside, thinking that the show being on the evening, we'll be able to see this tree. And I liked the tree in like a tone of moonlight. So when the show began, even on the rehearsal, I saw Ralph looking at it, because when you were in the room, you don't really take care of what's happening outside. You didn't. The tree was there, but it was just a part of the surrounding, nothing special. And it was very interesting to see how he had a smile looking to the trees appearing in a way for the show. So when the models are coming out, they were in front of this window, and this tree, by hazard, became the set itself. After we had this show at the Musée de l'Homme with the turning wooden piece, and then by this turning was interesting, he asked to make mirrors, but not perfect mirrors, who can turn at different speed. That's something we spoke about. And so the mirrors were turning, the models were walking. And here we have the beginning of the research. To speak about the research, we first have to speak about the vocabulary specific to fashion shows. As we spoke on what was the vocabulary of a presentation, a fashion show has a certain number of items. You receive people at a special time. They wait, they come inside a space, and they sit. They sit around an empty space, elevated or flat, which is the runway. They have very down light, and they had some kind of music, or none. At the end of this runway, could be a straight runway, could be a U runway, could be free runways, whatever, you have a set. The set could be a white wall, a color wall, or construction, or trees, or whatever, but that's a part of the vocabulary. Then you have a blackout, you have a first effect, the first light coming back, just on the empty space, not on the audience. And then you have the music, and then you have the finale, the last model leave, and then the model are coming back, and then the designer is coming with empty or not, and then he's bouncing, and then the show finished, the light come back on the audience, music change or music's lower. Some people are going on the backstage to shake their hand and give a hug and give felicitation, others are leaving. On the element, there is also the fact that you have photographers in the room in front of the runway, which was something who changed a lot during the last decades. And then you have the video in front shooting, and now you have everybody with their own phone taking images of the show. You have also a momentum in the year when you have to do it. These are elements of the show. And I mean, this is very interesting to see how after that we're gonna play with RAF to destructure as he was destructuring the concept of men's clothes and wardrobe. There was, as he was putting the piece of the artist directly inside, printing on his clothes, the same way we will together destructure the show. The show after this one was outside on a place called the NGS. It was an old 18th century school for people who cannot hear well. And there was this very, very beautiful long terrace in front of a garden, a bit messy. And I remember definitely of that show because the day before it was raining like hell. And all the guys and myself, we were focusing under the rain, which was quite dangerous. Basically, we arrived to the one just after, who was inside a museum. And here is coming a third thing, going as near art as possible. There is no difference. It's only a way of expression. And then into wording. What's fashion? This is art. But in reality, it's just a human expression. So basically, we were inside the Jeu de Paume. And I had this series of several white rooms, white kind of cubes that I had to light and to imagine how the models are going through. So we made with the team a way of walking. It was more like a promenade. And then when the people come in, each room was lit with a different color. Stable, not moving. But people were diving inside one color. And when they are inside an orange, they walk on the other room, they dive inside a dark blue, and they go somewhere, they go inside green. So it was very interesting to see how they feel themselves inside there. That was the first step regarding the colors. The second step was that the photographers themselves were not exactly in each rooms. They were on one room. One room was specific to them. So we arrived to this next show, and the next show was, we'll find another art place, but that's a private art place, a private museum, which is called the Maison Rouge. Here, it was on the thing that said, how can we light as if it was a kind of installation? So I work with a square of hammered metal to reflect the light, not with direct light, but everything with indirect light, like pieces of sculpture in the middle of the people, in the middle of this museum. And from this one, we went to another space. I go this way because you will see the other space, well, okay, we make a circular runway, but it was still respecting the language of the shows. After this, we went to a place. It was RAF who said, I've got a very good connection in the opening of the new Gagosian Gallery, which is à Le Bourget, which is like 20 minutes from Paris. So I'm going to do my summer show there. We went there. The PR would say, ooh, they were going to be difficult for make people come. So to make buses for people to come. But it was RAF. And then when we arrived in the Gagosian Gallery, There was the Jean Prouvé house, and there was Calder Mobile. Can you imagine the emotion of making a show and how every centimeter was discussed with RAF to know how do we see, where do we put who, how we put the seat inside the Jean Prouvé house, so the model were going inside, going outside, walking under the Calder. It was an incredible moment. On that little story, that after the rehearsal, we went walking up to see the exhibition. We were in the main room, and we were sitting talking. I was talking about a small Calder, amazing, beautiful piece, which was on shelves, and these metal shelves were an amazing, huge piece from Jean Prouvé. I was speaking about the Calder, and Ralph was speaking about the big Prouvé thing. 6 months after, I went to see him to his apartment in Paris, and when I was waiting for him in the salon, the Prouvé piece was there, bookshelves. Amazing. So, let's go back. After this Gagosian test, we went to a place near Place Vendôme. And here is the beginning of the twist. Looking to the collection, I said to Ralph, why do we have seats for people? Why do we have runways? Why do we have white light? Why do we have photograph inside? Can we twist it? Can we shift it? Can we put the photograph downstairs with a white background, easy, clean, easy to shoot? And do we have in the room a mix of red and green color and no runway, no seats, just gaffer tape on the floor to fix a space where the model gonna walk after? Red and green. He was looking at me like, what do you mean? I mean, I can't see my clothes. Say, yes, you will be able to see your clothes. You will be able to see your clothes because your eyes is mixing these two colors. When you see the Goethe circle of color, you see green and red as frontal one to the other. The eyes take a habit of this. I was very interested. So we went to his space of eating, which was an amazing, beautiful industrial space in the 18th district. And we went down in the cave with lamps, and I showed him the effect of both lights. He was pretty convinced. He said, we're going to try that. And then the PR said, but how are we going to do with all the gaffer tape? And people are not seated. They don't know which number they have. They don't know where they sit. Normally, they have the first row, second row, and all these rules about fashion. And I say, well, we with the production will very nicely, with your team, say to the people just before the show, please, can you move a bit? This is the way on the floor written where the model's going to walk. And it works perfectly. And the people were very nice. And everybody moved and liberated the 3 runways. The other thing I made also to break the show is like, you have in a show, you have models, and if you can, every model have one look. But most of the time, you have 2/3 of the look, which is one model, and 1/3, which is a model who is redressing to go on the second look. So what I did was to have 2 lines down. One lineup with all the models who never show, and one lineup with all the models who already show their outfit. Shown, meaning they went out, they walk in front of the photographers, they make the runways, and they leave. So basically talking on live during the show. At the beginning, for the first half of the show, only the model classically, on the order of the stylist, was walking to a distance always the same on this empty path between the standing audience. But that half of the show, I begin to ask to send back 2, 3, 1 of the older, between bracket, look, the model already shown. So it means that they were very near one to the other, and so it looked more and more like a street. Arrived to a moment that you didn't know if it was the audience moving in the light, because the light was everywhere, or it was the models moving. You have the feeling of a street and a real energy. When the people come in, everything was low red, and when the show began, be a full red and added the green. Just before that show, in the same venue, still in Ruby, put this amazing twist of the American flag suspended with the model walking inside of each. It was, we say, another step for him to mix art and fashion. After this show with the colors that he was very happy about, we changed and went to a photo shoot studio, was the cinema studio just nearby Paris. And we begin to say, okay, what can we shift more? So one thing we can shift is the cleanness. Make it random. So another piece I came with was like, why don't we elevate the models? So we still have the audience, no seat. We still break the position. We'll still break the ideas of place for photographers, but we keep some of them, mostly for video. But we elevated the runway on different height. And so it gives something very new. When we have lamps everywhere, stands, or exactly like it was in process. The things were not really focused, really finished. And so we make this first show with elevated runway, colors. I had a little bit of blue inside. So we had green, got blue, and some element of white. After the success of it, Ralph said, can we push further? So we can push. And then he began to design something more chaotic even. So the only place we could add chaos was the shape of the runway, to have even islands where audience cannot be in the middle, but models can have different paths. And that's what we done. And we done. So all these cables falling down, and the lamps, some lamps were on, some lamps were off, or most of them with colors. And then we have some white. So it's really created an identity end of the day. If you compare that to the last show he made at Gilles Sander, one with the amazing, super beautiful color, also primary, of the Cubism garden of the Villa Noailles that he discovered when he was making his exhibition here under the head of Mr. Jean-Pierre Blanc, who created at the Noailles building, which is one of the most amazing architecture that we have in France of the 1920s, 30s. And then after when we made this monoblock with plexiglass on the top and glass on the top with very beautiful and fresh colored flowers. So something which was slick to his brand, and his brand was something which was even at the limit of research, borderline to the absolute research. The one afterwards, we were a lot talking about social media and how we had a discussion about how I twist my life, thinking and the thought of the set, due to the fact that it was no more for the photographers and the audience, but for the people who were not there. So we have to allow every people inside, every audience, to be able to take photos, which are all different, to have their own Instagram images, personal. As long time ago, in the 90s, even when I began around 85, 84, the models were walking on a runway of 1.10 meters, and the photographer was on the side with film. And if you were not a perfect, super good photographer due to the speed of the model and due to the position where you were, and contre-plongé, that you couldn't have good photos. So these guys were crazy, amazing photographers. And here we have the same kind of feeling, having people on the side with their phone or iPad taking photos or film, but with a higher runway. So after that, for the higher runway, we say, if we can push further, and they say, well, we may again separate the photographers to have a very clean and commercial and marketing image. But then we could create a labyrinth of flats, normal flats, create a labyrinth. And with the labyrinth, we have the model passing by, sometime in the dark, sometime with light. And so everybody will be very near one to the other and can take image that no one can have because they only have this image from this angle. And so we create this, draw this labyrinth inside a very raw space who was just under reconstruction nearby a train station in Paris. And so what was amazing was there was no space for the model. The model knows because there was a line on the floor, but no more empty space. They were really super near to the audience. And then they have free pass difference, so you can see them, and sometimes you don't see them, they're going back, and they cross in front of you. Everybody have his own angle, no seat, no specific light. No, a lot of these parameters from the show have been switched off. And we kept the absolute emotion and the absolute interest and research on the show. After this one, it was the birthday of his brand. He made a huge exhibition at PT Uomo in Florence. On this huge exhibition, he was looking forward, and he had a specific idea to try to have mannequin, but a lot of different kind of mannequin. And he found with his team mannequin somewhere in Holland, I think. There was almost 300 of them. And they redressed with all his archive, all the mannequin, with it working as a crazy look. So production-wise, to organize that was fine. But they were the one with his team who can touch the clothes, who can carry their mannequin really properly. And we made a drawing with towers in scaffolding, stage, but for audience, lamps, stands, a mess, a huge mess. But also to think that for the opening of the exhibition, inside and looked by the audience, but also looked by the mannequin, and so looked by all his own history, we have the new collection showing that. So you had this amazing mix about who was the audience, because some mannequin were the height on the floor of the audience, making like pictures, you know. And so you had this mix of human beings near mannequin static, with mannequin static on the top, but stage where you have human beings, and then you have a collection with the models walking around. After that one, that was the last one, we had the pleasure to collaborate with RAF. His life moved him somewhere else, and we stayed friends. Take care.